Hey, what's up guys, Arava here, and welcome back to a brand new video today, and welcome to my very first laps on F1 2020. So big thanks to Codemasters for sending me out an early build of F1 2020. Today, we've got a bunch of laps around time trial in F1 2020, specifically in the 2020 Ferrari liveried car. Of course, it's the FOM car, the car that Codemasters have made in partnership with F1 to meet the 2020 regulations with a Ferrari livery over the top, but the performance will be similar to the Ferrari at final release, and of course the sound similar as well. Right, let's roll the clips here. We're going to start off at the Hungarian Grand Prix and then make our way through later to Zandvoort and the other circuits available to us in this build of time trial. But let's talk about then the ERS system. You'll notice the bottom right there, we're stuck in number 3 because ERS has been simplified to 3 modes, and I can confirm it is now auto-deploying all the time. The AI in the game control how it's deployed. It's been mapped to every single circuit for obviously the different deployment maps, you know, as they do in real life. And like real life, the drivers do not control ERS every single second, every single corner. So the entire system from F1 2019 has been removed. It all auto deploys now. It appears there's only 3 modes as well, because we're in maximum mode in time trial, but that doesn't really matter when we're in auto, of course. But what you can't see right now, and what is available in a race scenario, is also an overriding overtake button, which was the overtake we saw in that Spanish McLaren gameplay earlier on last week. So there is an overtake button. You can use that to override and get some extra boost, and it almost works a lot like KERS. The KERS button did back in the older F1 games, and obviously when F1 in real life had KERS, you had like a button. In real life they have this push to pass overtake button to override it, and after getting feedback from the real Formula 1 drivers, Cody's decided to change it up, of course, because the drivers were telling them we don't have to do this like we've had to do on F1 2019 the game. So the ERS mode is simplified in the game, and so that's going to change the dynamic a little bit, especially in the race situations. Talking to Lee Mather in a Q&A, he said of course you can keep on clicking overtake multiple times in a short span, but that will mean then your car will, obviously the AI of your car with the ERS will have to be in lower modes for all the time, and you can't control that, of course, so you'll be a sitting duck. So you really do have to tactically think about it and use it like the KERS button was back in the older games, and really just use it as a way to push past someone or potentially gain some time out of a good corner that you're great at, or a poor corner. If you're really slow somewhere and need to make up time, maybe with the overtake button, you can use that in that sort of scenario. But it's going to be a completely different ball game for, not only career mode and offline versus the AI, but then also online against people in league racing and F1 esports, of course. So we've now obviously moved on to the Zandvoort gameplay, so this was very cool to try for the first time. But I want to go back to the Hungarian lap for a second in terms of just mentioning it. It seems like Hungary, like Spain, has been changed slightly, at least to my eyes and feeling. I felt like Hungary Sector 2 has been widened slightly, and generally, I think the trend is at a few different circuits around in this game, I think we'll find a few parts are being widened and changed, maybe some curbs are flattened, because the real drivers, having now spoken more directly to Codemasters, have kind of told them, no, this is wrong, this feels bad, this is kind of not realistic to what we feel in like real life, and the track is a lot wider than it feels in the game. So I think Hungary's changed a little bit. Of course, Zandvoort's a completely new track, and Zandvoort's one they've actually got some proper laser scan data from, and so Lee has talked about in some Q&As with us that that may build upon into the next gen of F1 games, how they go about building new circuits or rebuilding the old ones onto the next gen of consoles, doing it like they've done with Zandvoort with some proper real numbers data a little bit more, because obviously it's a modern build compared to some of the other circuits which have had built for a long while. So, moving on to now some more other general gameplay aspects. I can confirm there's now also a rear view mirror, which is possible. I don't have any gameplay of it because I didn't actually activate it, but there's a rear view mirror now that you can get like in iRacing. So if you do play cockpit cam, that's going to be very useful to you. Talking now about general handling as it goes, of course, as you're about to see in this entire video, I've done 6 different circuits here. Hungary, Zandvoort, we've got the Austrian GP, the Italian Grand Prix, Spain, and Bahrain. So a good mix of circuits, some high speed, lower speed, long straight, short, more of a kind of, point and squirt circuit. So a nice variety, apart from maybe a street, like a thoroughbred street circuit like Monaco or Singapore, unfortunately, but a good spread of circuits nonetheless. So I think there's a good overview and, chance to get inside. So handling wise, I think off the bat, out the box, with the default setup this was, with the same wheel settings I use in F1 2019, a much just general better feeling of the weight of the car, and actually a feeling of the car mid-corner much better than F1 2019. Remember that I've spoken many times about, my opinion now is that the default cars in F1 2019 are actually, they don't feel like F1 cars anymore, and the maxed out career mode cars in F1 2019, they actually feel like how an F1 car should, in my opinion, like actually planted in high speed. And now, of course, these cars, I'm driving an F1 2020, they don't have any upgrades of career mode or whatever. They are the base cars that we'll have when the game launches, and they feel so much better than the default F1 2019 cars. Like, it feels almost like they're, you know, Season 2 career mode cars. Like, you've had a few upgrades on them in a career mode scenario. So that's a really good thing, because it means that default, the game, every car just generally has a lot more downforce high speed. Like, there's just generally more grip mid-corner. I think a good example is Turn 3 at Spain. And I think it's just generally in most high-speed corners, you can see that I'm able to get on the power a little bit earlier and maybe keep full throttle earlier. Low speed, it's still very similar, I would say, to F1 2019, which is, I think, a good thing, because F1 2019 did get that kind of, you know, very light, maybe a little bit understeery and just kind of generally a little bit more fragile at low speed, as you can see the F1 cars are in real life. But then at high speed, they're a lot more planted and a lot more bulletproof in terms of wobbling around, apart from when you get onto curbs, which are still a bit of an issue here and there. Of course, you know, you'd like them to be in certain scenarios. Obviously, I haven't tried every single circuit in this build. There's not every single circuit in this build, so I can't say for certain, like, some of the horrendous curbs on F1 2019, if they're any better or not. But like I mentioned, in certain circuits, I feel like they've flattened some curbs. Like here in Italy, I feel like they've flattened the curbs a little bit more through Ascari than they are in F1 2019, so you can be a bit more aggressive with that. But generally, also, the brake zones, and this is something Lee Mather has also pointed out when he was talking about his experience driving it as well. The brake zones are all of them, across the board, a little bit shorter. And it's, again, part and parcel of that stopping power being a little bit better, and the general downforce of the car being a lot more apparent than it ever was in F1 2019. So I think as well, you're going to notice that for getting the front end turned in and under braking, everything's just a bit more snappy and a bit less, well, just sluggish and slow, and just feels like rubbish. Like, frankly, to be fair, now looking back at it, F1 2019 default cars do, because I've been spoiled with the maxed out career mode cars, and it showed me how actually bad and kind of unflattering the default cars were to drive in a way on F1 2019, at least in certain scenarios at the high speed. But they kind of corrected that a lot in F1 2020, and again, I think that's alluding to getting the driver feedback from the real drivers, saying, you know, the F1 cars, you know, they have a lot more stopping power than they do in F1 2019, so that's been rectified. The same thing with the throttle. I think the drivers have been saying the throttle at times is a little bit too peaky, a little bit too crazy, and so I've noticed also the rear end is a bit more planted out of certain corners. It's still an issue, don't get me wrong, you still have to actually have some throttle control, but in general, I felt like I was thinking about the throttle control less than I ever did in F1 2019 with default cars. So I think that shows the throttle's a little bit more planted and the rear end's a bit more stable than it is, especially out of the kind of more subtle corners where sometimes you definitely would still have to, you know, use a very light right foot. Now you can be a little bit more aggressive and get on the power earlier, which frankly for me I think is a good thing, because it means you can race a little bit harder. I think for, you know, versus AI, that's going to be great, hopefully, if they're a little bit less OP in the traction zones. And then obviously going back to, you know, online league racing, F1 esports, that'll be good as well, because everyone can really push even harder and more on the limit of the car, basically. And especially at the high speed, you know, going wheel to wheel against AI or other players online, if there's more stability at high speed, it means you can just have better battles, basically, because you're not both kind of on edge of slipping the car, you know, into a spin, or the car losing the rear end, or the front end's not turning as much as you want it to. So now we're getting on towards the end of all the footage with the time trial laps here. Obviously 6 different circuits, all in the same Ferrari car, just to kind of have a bit of consistency here. But do let me know, guys, what other cars you want to see and combinations you want to see. Obviously we have every car available apart from the Mercedes car to use, so do let me know what other kind of the car liveries you want to see or onboards you want to see. There will be a video a little bit later today with some engine comparison sounds between the 4 different engines, so that is coming, so look out for that. And if you're new around here, do get subscribed for that, and especially more so for you guys who are fans of my channel and like the career mode stuff. I will be having some very detailed videos on F1 2020 My Team career mode and normal career mode, full details of all the things you need to know now coming out of the kind of presser from Codemasters and F1 2020, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, unfortunately, if you don't know, I don't think I stated it at the very start of the video, but this early build has been provided by Codemasters, so massive thanks to them. But the only thing that we're allowed to post at the moment are time trial laps, so there's not actually a lot of very unique and interesting content that can come out of this build right now, to be completely honest. So a lot of what is possible in the build you've just seen right now in front of your eyes. So I don't know, let me know if you do want to see those combos of different circuits and different track and different cars. The circuits that are available are the ones that you've seen in this video, so don't go asking for other ones basically. But that's going to be this video then, my very first laps on F1 2020 around these 6 circuits. Out of the box, the general overview feels very nice and a lot more promising than F1 2019 default cars now feel like to me, having done 6 seasons of career mode basically. I feel like the career mode cars maybe spoiled my outlook on the handling model of F1 2019, but these 2020 cars out of the box feel really comfortable. I feel like they're really drivable, whereas this time last year, when I was first trying out F1 2019 cars, it was such a big change to the handling model from 2018 that it was a different kind of world, whereas 2020, it's more of an evolution in a really nice way. Like, they've improved the parts of the handling model that definitely needed to be addressed. So, you know, I can't really complain too much. Obviously, there will be some niggles and foibles I'm yet to find as I do more and more laps, and obviously, when those crop up, I will be bringing them up in a kind of to your attention. But guys, if you did enjoy this video, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, like I said, and if you're new around here, do get subscribed. I've been Arava. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.